So how did I do the excavation work on myself and helping others with as well? Started off really in coffee shops. I love coffee shops. For me, they're a place to relax, they're a place to think, they're a place to plan the future and help others. I just love the environment, the ambience, they work for me. And I realized when I started to write in coffee shops, initially using a keyboard, I could stay there for hours and hours. Maybe have to buy 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee. I was there so long at times. But this writing process, excavating through journal writing, if you want me to be technical, I can go through it with you anytime, just get in touch. Something called reflexive journals, where I'm primarily talking about my own emotions when I'm listening to others, even when I'm listening to whichever voices I have here. I seem to have 4 or 5 voices going on. I don't mean psychotic type voices. I just mean, well, voices I listen to. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes I think some of them are opposed to me. Some are very pro me. I realize they're all doing their best to help me. I have to work out where the help is sometimes. It could be I don't apply for a job, or in my case a contract, because I feel I'm not good enough. And one of my voices will say, yeah, don't apply, you're going to embarrass yourself, you won't be the best. And that voice is just trying to literally stop me from that embarrassment, the letdown, the rejection. In the past I wasn't great at rejection, now I'm much better. But then another voice will be saying, Marcus, you've got a huge amount of qualifications, you've got lots of experience. Probably nobody's going to match you when it comes to both the experience and the qualifications. So these two voices are fighting. Yes, you may fail, but does it matter? The biggest failure is obviously failing to try. So I started to write. I was doing really well. I also use AI not to write for me. I ask AI to interrogate me, ask me questions, and I try and answer the questions that AI gives me sometimes. That's when I dry up. Once AI has given me a few questions in a coffee shop environment, I just flow, non-stop, writing, writing, writing. And now I mentioned the writing. Initially, I was pleased with myself and the help from AI. Then I realized I wasn't going as deep emotionally and intellectually as I needed to. So then what I did, based upon a hunch, based upon research I'd known about for a long time, writing with a physical pen and physical book, paper, for some reason helps people to think far deeper. It slowed me down. It made me more analytical in thought. I started to go through various things in my past, and I stress my form of excavation is not at all related to Freud. Freud talks about excavation and archaeology for psychoanalytic reasons. My reasons, I'm using exactly the same terms. Someone else must have used it in peace processes I was involved in, because I've used those terms for about 30 years, helping people build peace after warfare, after terrorism, after being locked up in prison, whatever. That's my background, peace building. I'm not a medical doctor. If you need that type of advice, please seek professional help from professional clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, that type of thing. Mine is very different. Mine is very much self-help, and most of the work I did in peace processes was groups supporting themselves, groups who needed peer support because they felt nobody else could understand. And I got as many of those groups as possible to write as well. So they were actually excavating their own lives, sharing their own lives. Lots of people doing similar things with different names to what I was doing. But at the end of the day, people need to be heard. And this excavation work not only helps you hear me, it helps me hear me. The victims of terrible events, it helped them to hear themselves. For me, I kept coming across something that maybe in my past, from a very early age, I realized through excavation and writing that I didn't seem to fit in with other people. Even though I was sociable, even though I had friends, even though I loved playing football every single day when I was young, I didn't have the amount of friends perhaps I should have done. Very recently I found an old school report. I've no idea how I found it because I've moved several times and I found it in a garage in a foreign country in a place I owned. And that said, it's to my parents obviously, and it said, Marcus, very intelligent, but really struggles to pay attention. Doesn't say much in class, doesn't contribute. And here's me thinking I was saying a lot. Here's me saying I contributed a lot to the class. I was always sociable, always asking questions. Maybe those questions were in my mind. Yes, I got bored in some questions. Yes, some people I didn't want to talk to. Yes, I had difficulty facing rejection. And through the excavation process, it suddenly hit me that I possibly have something like ADHD. I hate the term disorder, so I don't use that. ADH, attentive deficit hyperactivity, I would call it, the traits of it. I've never been diagnosed, I'll never be diagnosed at my age, there's no point. But once I started to review my life, using the lens of someone who potentially had this issue, I suddenly looked back with enormous clarity. It was incredible what I could see about myself. I was suddenly looking at a completely different person, a different child to what I knew, a different teenager, a different guy in his 20s. And for me, it was amazing. And through excavation, because I'm in charge of the excavation, or you could be in charge of your own excavation, I was very gently digging around various issues in my life, digging around failure a lot, digging around some of the successes, digging around the fact that even at my age, I do a huge amount of traveling to different countries. I've traveled to conflict zones, quite often by myself or with groups of colleagues, quite often voluntary work, a huge amount of voluntary work and raising monies for groups. I've worked with some or met with some people that most people would say you're absolutely mad to meet them. A lovely guy in my terms, and he really was for me. He was sent to jail for hundreds and hundreds of years, released as part of a peace process. Another guy also sent to jail for a huge amount of time. Possibly they were enemies. So kind, did so much work for me to help a group I was working with. Absolutely incredible. Meeting these people taught me a huge amount about myself. And I realized if you've got traits of ADHD, you need dopamine. When you travel in the world, when you're meeting people that most people would run a long way from, that to me was the dopamine. Knowing I was going into potentially enemy territory, people perceiving me to be the enemy, that gave me the dopamine rush. And although I met people who probably did perceive me to be the enemy, we got on really, really well. And that's my excavation process. It's very simple. Even today, I go to coffee shops, I write now in a book. I will then actually today photograph what I've written, stick it onto Microsoft Word as a photograph, and Microsoft Word will convert it into text, which I can then use if I need it online, that type of thing. But writing, thinking, reflecting, always by myself in the coffee shops, by the way. Very rare for me. I would never do this type of work in a coffee shop with somebody else. It's always just me. And it's been amazing. It's simple. It's cheaper than therapy. Now, if you need therapy, again, please seek professional advice. Thankfully, I don't think I do. And what I do just works. And other people I've spoken to about it, there's similar things. I think a guy called Penny Baker, he does a very similar program related to reflective journal writing. I think his lasts a few days, and that's designed to help people with a variety of issues going on. Again, my work is not related to his work at all. So, differences, very different. Yeah, so you may have seen similar works, you won't have seen mine. Mine is simple to use. For me, it's been highly effective. It's based upon around 30 years of mediation and peacekeeping, working always at street level. I never worked at government level at all. Always working with people on the street, working with community groups, and especially working with individuals who've been traumatized. A huge amount of those I work with, I realize now, are neurodiverse in some ways. I seem to deal with a lot of people with the traits of ADHD or the traits of autism. And again, I'm not in a position to diagnose anybody, but I can certainly tell a lot of people that you seem to have these traits. If they want, go and get checked. Most people I know who will be successful business people as well say, what's the point? I've proven I can be successful in life. I don't need to find out I have a disorder. And again, a lot of people objecting to that term. But that's my roundabout way of telling you how I do the excavation work. Give it a try yourself. Keep in touch, there's going to be another video on this. I've got a group as well which you can join if you want, all about the similar sorts of work. And it doesn't really matter, as long as you can speak English really well. Most of my clients come from places such as Japan, South Korea, China, Central Europe, and obviously I have a lot of clients in Ireland and the UK as well. Quite a few in Brazil, and that's about it. Not many in the United States, one or two in Australia, but yeah, I'd love to hear from you and share information with you. So if that interests you, and it won't interest everybody, but if I'm saying something there and it sort of clicks, it ignites something, I'd love to know what. Have a great day.